No, that was a chat notification.
All right.
I think we're good.
Okay, so back to the.
There we go.
And it's recording? Yes, I hit record.
Okay.
Fantastic.
Now you have me double check again. Yes,
Right,
it's recording.
fantastic.
Okay.
All right. For those who just joining us on Zoom, I thank you for your patience as well as everyone in person tonight. Just very quickly, I'm Kristen Romenko, the college counselor here at Millwood, and we'll be hearing tonight from our OptimumEd team, Mr. Leahy and Ms. Suarez.
All right. Let's back up a minute and we'll start over. So, anyway, thank you so much for joining us this evening. We're going to show you what we are going to be helping your students with. We're going to show you tools that we're putting in their hands, as I said before, to make this whole college application process more successful and more efficient, and hopefully relieve a lot of stress on the part of parents, on the part of the student. And it is a process that we go through. We'll talk about that in some length. So there's a lot of questions about college, right? So should you go to college? Now, the big question, taking a lot of minds. And I can tell you that even if you end up in a career that perhaps the job itself, the work you're doing, doesn't require that level of education, that college degree is still going to hold sway when it comes to being hired quicker, being retained longer, being promoted faster. Okay. But I ask you the question: if that's the situation, what are you willing to pay for that educational leverage, right? If you're going to be working your way up through the management at Macy's, do we need a $200,000 degree from Columbia, to make that happen? Or could we just as soon get an online bachelor's degree from Phoenix? Okay, it's a great example, but this is a practical exercise. Going to college should have a result. Going to college should have a return, right? You're investing a lot of money. Students are investing time and energy. And I can tell you that today, the end game is not that piece of paper they walk across the stage to get. It's a job and career that piece of paper delivers. Okay? Because I know as parents and students, you can probably agree with this as well. When you leave college, you want to come home to visit, not to be attended, right? And so this is, while education is wonderful and all that, this is a practical exercise. This is about setting you up for that first step into life, that first job, that first potential career. And we want to be, because it costs so much to go to college today. We can't afford to go off to college to find ourselves. So we have to do better planning ahead of that. We have to talk about things like, what is the direction I should be headed in life? How does that translate into academic path and all that? Okay? So the challenge today is not getting into college. Okay? Just about any high school graduate can get into college somewhere. It's graduating in 4 years with minimal debt, with a marketable degree, and the opportunity to earn back that investment in less than 20 years. Yes, less than 20 years. Now, there are schools in this country where college graduates, after 20 years, have not caught up with their high school counterparts in terms of earnings. So again, it's all part of the planning process. It's all about understanding the landscape and doing the research and taking steps to make sure that what we're doing is right and makes sense and making those good decisions. And if we don't plan and we just throw it against the wall, as they say, it can be disastrous. There's a lot of landmarks out there in the higher education process, college process. So, you know, it could be disastrous personally and educationally, it could be disastrous financially. So again, that's why we're here to establish and help students that are planning ahead of time before they go off to spend their time and energy before they go off to spend mom and dad's money. Okay, so we need to really shift our approach to how we look at this college process. One, you know, first of all, you know, we have to make sure that we identify the right career. And if we can figure out what you should be when you grow up, not necessarily what you want to be, what you should be, you know, the rest is really planning backwards. You know, I want to be this. What education and training do I need to secure to get there? Where do I get that education and training? What does that start? That starts the college search process, right? What college majors do I need available? What schools have those, right? If I need, you know, something, you know, some sort of health, you know, major, then it doesn't make any sense for me to go to a school that doesn't have a health program, right? I think that's pretty intuitive. In the career, then, you know, it takes academics, as it says, and then academics drives college selection. That's the process, right? And we bring that process here to your students, and it's a pre-tiered process that we're involved in. One is admissions, as you can see. One is marketing, and one is financial aid. Yeah, marketing. Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, oh, I can.
Can you hear me? I gotta eat the microphone.
I'm just texting things.
Okay. I'm not a microphone person, so wait. Club myself. All right, so the assessment, you know, is the first step to this process. So you can see, I don't need to read it to you. You can see the steps that we go through. But I need you think about, especially you students that are here. This is a marketing process, okay? We're marketing you to the schools to get in and to get financial aid. Okay? Marketing. Okay? We package yourself as competitively as possible, and you do the things that are necessary to have a leg up on the other folks that are applying. All right? And you have to think about it that way. So there's the marketing process, and then there's, of course, financial aid. But it all starts up in the left-hand corner up there with the assessment. Okay? And we're gonna, so now we're gonna start explaining to you some of the ins and outs of the pieces of the process. So Candace's gonna talk to you about the assessment.
Tom always laughs at me because I get really excited when I talk about the assessment. It's my favorite part by far. I'm Candace Suarez. I am a counselor by trade. I was a school counselor when I lived in Pennsylvania. So the assessment is,
Yeah.
Wait, okay.
Back. Go.
There we go. All right. So having that plan, I'm not good at following slides. So having a plan is going to accomplish two things, right? One, it's going to help you practically reduce college debt. Because if you have a really good plan and you know the direction you want to go, you're not going to waste time in college, time and money and extra credits that you don't need by switching majors 5 times. Or, you know, if you have to switch colleges and they have all new expectations. So knowing what you want to do, at least for that good solid first step out of college, is really important. It helps reduce that. But in addition to that, the assessment really shows a student's strengths. And that's my favorite part of it. It really goes into showing what they can do, what they're capable of doing, how their personality is going to fit into what they should be doing with the rest of their life. So the first thing we do is we talk about the assessment. Your child takes the assessment in school or at home. It's a link. Then we go over the results with them. We have a meeting like this and go over general results. And then we're also available to meet with your student one-on-one, meet with your family one-on-one after that.
to go over the results more individually because it really is art based on science. You know, we are not the type of company that gives you the results and hands them to you and says, here you go, check it out. We really dig in and we really help you go through it and help you talk through all of the options. So we do that with you in a big group setting, small group settings in the classrooms, and if you want to engage us individually, you're welcome to do that. At the end of the assessment, it shows you career matches. Sometimes a student picks a career that's on that list and sometimes not. Sometimes after lots of discussion, they're doing something closely related to something on that list. But really, I know kids have a very narrow view of the world of work. They know what their parents do, aunts and uncles, neighbors, maybe. So this just really opens up their eyes to all that's out there that they're capable of doing. And then we talk about the viability of the job as well. So the assessment goes into three main pieces. It assesses thinking style, which is how information is processed. It gives 5 different scores in that area. It gives an overall learning index. It gives verbal skill, verbal reasoning, numeric skill, and numeric reasoning. Okay, so it really gives an overview of what they're capable of doing intellectually, ability. And then it goes into 9 different behavioral traits, things like leadership, sociability, attitude, manageability, all of those different things. So it gives them a score, whether they're extroverted or introverted, you know, all of those kinds of things, right? And then it gives them their top 3 interest categories. So there's 6 of them. I never can see if I can get them off the top of my head. There's creative, there's technical, people services, financial administrative, what did I miss? Mechanical, and I probably missed one, but you get the idea. And it takes all 3 of those things together to present the careers. And then the cool thing is if you've dug into how many of you have had your student take the assessment already and have seen the results? Okay, so the cool part about that when you get it is it has a live link on there that takes you out to a website with all this career information. It gives you tons of details about that job, about what the day in and day out tasks are, education requirements, all of those kinds of things. It shows related careers where you can go down a rabbit hole exploring all different kinds of related things. And then it also shows you job projections. It shows you what salary you could be what you could be making if you were starting out, middle of your career, top of your career. And then it also shows outlook. Is it a job that's growing, or is it a job that might be gone by the time you graduate from college? All right, so it goes into all of that. So we talk about that viability too. So basically our idea is we're not a one-size-fits-all kind of program. We really, if you're a square peg, let's find you a square hole. We're not trying to squeeze anybody on a path that they're not set out to be on, right? Does anybody have any questions about the assessment before we go on to the college search? What do we do here? They take it spring of sophomore year. Yeah, so spring of sophomore year, they take it, and then we go over, we spend junior year with them, as Ms. Mamenko was saying. She has them up until they're sophomores, and then we take juniors. Yeah, okay. All right, any other questions about the assessment? Okay, all right. So the next thing on the step is once you figure out your major, and I am a firm believer that no one should pigeonhole into doing a career for the next 40, 50 years and then retiring. The world isn't made like that anymore, but you do need to have a plan for a good, solid first step to grow from. All right, so that's what we're about. So once you've chosen the major, which comes after kind of choosing the career, you want to pick a school that's going to have that academic major so that, you know, and if you have 2 or 3 and you just can't narrow it down, you want to pick a school that's going to have all of those options so you don't have to transfer if you decide one is not going to be right for you. So finding that academic match is the first step. And then you want to look at the college environment. all kinds of things. Like if you're a student coming from a small school like Millwood, do you love that? Would you want to be at the same type of small private college? Or do you want to get lost in a huge school with 50,000 people? Okay, so you have to really think about that. Do you want to be at a school that's going to have football for homecoming, or is that not important to you? Do you want to be able to play club lacrosse? You know, all those manner of things. We can help guide in that right direction because it's going to be your home for the next 4 years. You want it to feel comfortable. You want it to fit who you are. Okay. And then looking at the financial fit. As you can tell, the financial thing is not my thing, so I keep glossing over that. Tom talked about that. Okay. And this is another thing we want to mention too. So this quote comes from a college admissions counselor. When building a college list and preparing for the application process, students' priority should always be on fit, not the weight of the school's name. So just because Harvard is a good school doesn't mean it's a good school for your students. Okay? So picking the right fit school for your child and you, your student, is going to be the best case. It doesn't necessarily mean that prestigious aspect. You want to make sure that your child's going to go there and be successful. You don't want them to go there and be floundering because they shouldn't be there. All right. Is this you or is this me? Okay. All right.
I would like to kind of take a pause with that whole thing.
Yeah.
So I think it's really important. There's a lot of misinformation about, you know, getting your child into the best school, right? So I just want to give you some information. So, you know, first of all, college is about getting hired, okay? And where you went to college is about number 6 on the list of things that employees.
So that means that I'm 21. I can drink beer now.
Number 6.
All right, I'm listening. I'm in this Zoom meeting.
Probably
So.
important if you're looking for an engineering job, and you should have an engineering job. Right?
Yeah, so I can listen.
The school name is not
so.
going to hold as much sway as performance, as leadership, as experience, those sorts of things, okay, that employers are looking for. Okay. Other things, prestigious schools don't create successful students. If you think you're going to send your child off to some big school and they're going to turn them into something successful, you're wrong. Prestigious schools recruit prestigious students.
Yeah.
That's why they're prestigious. Okay?
Yeah.
Yes, you have to have a great GPA. You have to have high test scores because that opens the door. Okay? But it's the other things that you bring to the table that get you selected. That's why I always hear the story. Well, Johnny had a perfect score on the SAT, 1600. He didn't get into Harvard. Well, because all Johnny brought to the table was a 1600. Okay? They're looking for kids who have been recognized nationally, regionally. They're doing great things. This is how they maintain their prestige. Okay? For our kids, unless they are one of those students, it's really more important about finding the right school where they're going to thrive. They're going to graduate with a great GPA, because those employers, large employers, also when you're applying, they ask, about performance, and if you don't have a 3.0 or 3.5, they're going to move on to the next candidate. And a lot of times that's done without even knowing it. Okay, so you need to position your child in a school where they're going to be successful, and as Candace said, not flounder. All right, and we don't want to set up our kids for failure, and that's the varsity blues thing, right? That's what drove the whole varsity blues scheme. Is this misconception that you get our kids at a big fancy school and they're going to take over the world? It doesn't happen that way, okay? Unless you're going to drive really too.
Max volume.
Can't hear it. I know you may be passionate about it, but it's so important because people don't understand that for kids, failing at that age is much more difficult to overcome. Self-esteem, damage of self-confidence, those kinds of things. Then, maybe not going to their dream school, but going to a school where they're going to, come out and be successful, get that first job. So we need to be practical. We need to kind of, think about it in those terms. I hope I didn't burst anybody's bubble, but I think it's important that we talk about that. Nobody probably heard that because I wasn't eating the microphone.
Yeah, you're good.
Okay. So let's talk a minute about this year. We have seniors, okay? 'Cause this year is going to be different. The application process last year was different too, but so still a lot of chaos in higher education. One of the big questions is about standardized testing. I can tell you it's not going to go away. In fact, right now, the latest number I saw is about 65% of the schools nationally are test optional. Okay, so that means there's still a lot of schools that want to see those test scores. Right, and if you have a junior, plan on standardized testing. Because think about it, if you're an admissions person, and are you going to give up a very quantifiable way of separating the sheep from the goats, test scores, and give that up for having to do something more subjective, like, reading an essay 3 times for different students to try to make a decision? I don't think so. I don't think standardized testing is not going to, in fact, some of the bigger schools, some of the more prestigious schools, who come online and said that. It's going to still be part of the process moving forward. So I just want to let you know that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I thought I did that myself.
No.
Dial my phone.
Thought I'd give you less things to hold.
All right. So when we talk about marketing, the biggest piece of marketing that we're going to help with is creating that high school resume. Okay. This is all the things that we did outside of class, 9th grade on. Okay. And sometimes even elementary school on it. It's something that we've been engaged in for that period of time. Okay. This is back to my comment about what else do you bring to the table, the admissions process, right? So the high school resume is important. What are the things have you done outside of class? Sports, clubs, community service, work. And did you have to spend a lot of your free time, in this environment, helping your family? That is something that schools want to know about, right? Because that shows character. That sort of thing. So, putting that resume together, there's 3 reasons, right? One is we create a document. So it looks like that. It's all different, of course. Every student's different. A document that we can email to the schools ahead of application time to the admissions office, right? To sort of start what they call demonstrated interest. Okay. 2, it's that piece of paper you can carry with you when you go to visit schools. You go by the admissions office and drop it off. Okay. Another touch, right? And we've got to have that information anyway when it comes time for applications, because this is the stuff that goes into the activity section of the application, right? So we have to collect all that information anyway. Okay, but why shouldn't we use it to further our competitiveness by doing other things that give us a leg up? Okay, right? Like having a picture on it, right? I get arguments all the time about why, but because people respond to an image, that's why we put a picture on. And that same picture goes on the Gmail account that we're corresponding with the schools. There's a reason for that, all right. Okay, so again, right to the activity section of the application. It's so important to spend time, not just, give it lip service, but we need to spend time. We were with a student for 2 hours.
Almost 2 hours the other night, and he had done his resume ahead of time, and it still took him that long.
Get it right. What comes first? What do we say? What are the right words? Active verbs and that sort of thing.
And we work on that resume with students. Like, we start working with them like January of senior year to help develop that resume.
Right.
And
And at the end of the I got some exciting news at the end of the presentation that we'll share that's going to help with that. Okay. Again, and so that becomes even more important this year because we don't have testing in a lot of cases. The other thing that's really more important this year than ever is the college essay. It's always been a huge piece of the application process. And again, this is something that needs to start early. We need to spend time doing it. This is not a research paper, it's not a book.
Hey, please talk to the mic.
Okay. It's about story, and it's about who the student is and what we can tell the school about the student. It's not in the rest of the application process been submitted. Okay. We'll look at that here in a minute. But we spent a lot of time, on the essay about brainstorming ideas, giving them examples of previous essays. It's not just I play soccer and I learned to be a leader. The soccer could be the backdrop for the story, but there's got to be some substance, and it's got to be hook. It's got to be creative. It's got to be interesting. My most favorite essay of all time, a young lady we worked with 4 years ago now. Her essay was a tour of her bedroom. Because everything in her bedroom said something about who she was. Cool. All right. Okay, so anyway, so parts of the application. All right. So it's not just there's parts to it, right? The transcript, which shows our GPA, et cetera. We've got test scores that it's applicable. So the admissions committee is going to look at the rigor of the curriculum. They're going to look at performance and all of that. So we got the transcript. And it's so important to keep that in mind when you have a ninth grader looking forward. How is that, what is that progression going to look like? What are the curriculum choices you're going to be making as you move forward to show a steady increase in rigor? Okay, we'd rather see that in a flat GPA, than an increasing GPA and a declining rigor in the curriculum. They want to see kids challenging themselves. Okay, so this is something that the school will work with you with in 9th and 10th grade, and we'll kind of take over. But keep, it's something that is really important to lay a plan out right from the start and kind of map that out. I know that's what's happening here, so that's important. Resume, again, that's the high school resume we were talking about, extracurricular activities and all that. So then there's letters of recommendation, and that's how educational professionals, teachers mostly, see the student as an individual, as a citizen, whatever. It's not you got an A in my class if that's what they're going to write. It's not going to do a whole lot of good. They need to do a little insightful. Needs to share something, about character, and that's letters. But this is how an adult professional sees the student. And the essay, and that's how the student sees himself. Again, we've talked about that. What is it that student, what does the student want to share with that committee about their life to that point? Experiences, people they've met. How do they get to be who they are and have their values and their perspective? That's what we want the essay to do. Speak to. Okay, those are the parts of the application. And again, there are 3 different, not to complicate things, there's 3 different application platforms now in use. So the Common App is what everybody hears about, but there's 2 others too that some schools use. Universal is not so common. Okay. Now, let's talk about paying for it. Okay. So, there's not very many families that pay for it all out of the 529 plan or whatever. This just gives you an idea of, for a normal student, that money comes from various sources. Okay, so when you're thinking about the plan to pay for it, think about the different resources, different places you can go to find a little money, right? All right, so, you know.
Oh, do you want?
No, that's fine. Yeah, so I just want, point out what happened. Oh, my dollar sign went over that. Anyway, there's merit, two types of financial aid, merit and need-based, okay? Merit is, just like it sounds, based on the quality of the student. Need-based, based on income and assets of the parents, right? Those things come together to create this financial aid offer that you'll get from the school, right? On the need-based side, it's pretty simple, income and assets. There's a formula that they use to determine what the family can fairly afford 1 year's cost of education. You can compare that number to the cost of the school. If there's a difference, that's need-based eligibility, right? Formula says you can afford 10, school costs 20, you establish 10 in need-based eligibility. The school accepts your student, they have to address that $10,000 between what the government says you need to pay and what the school costs. That's need-based, okay? That's simplistic. There's a lot more to it than that, but just gives you an idea of how that works. All right. And we can, I'll be happy to meet with any of you to talk about all of that. If you'd like filing for financial aid, pre-application for federal student aid, every school uses that. That's what determines the distribution of federal money and the FAFSA. Css Profile, that is administered by the college board, and a lot of private schools and a couple of our more prestigious public schools here in Virginia as well, UVA, William & Mary, use the Css Profile. It's much more financially invasive than the FAFSA, but more in depth, because they use it to distribute collegiate money through Css Profile. So you may be, if you're going to a private school, maybe filling out the Css Profile. Okay. And now the rules are right now that you can file as a senior, you can file 1 October after, but it's based on 2-year-old information rather than 1-year-old information, as it was previous to the recent change. I know there's a lot more. If you want more information, I'd be happy to meet with any of you. But there's also more changes coming for the 2023-2024 school year. When we file for financial aid, there's going to be some. This is only 3. There's a lot more, but these are kind of the significant ones. Income protection allowance will increase, but if you've got multiple children right now, if you have 2 children in school, for example, at the same time, that number they say you can afford for your cost of education is not double, it's cut in half. It's a family can afford this, so you got 2. So instead of 10 for each student, now it's 5 per student, right? You got 2 schools. That's going away. Now each student is going to be 10. Yeah, 2 at the same time. Yeah. And, there's some other, like, the support from outside. I'm not going to report anything like that, but we'll, as we get into it, if you need and want help with, financial aid and all that, I'd be happy to meet with you. And just, I am still a registered financial advisor. I still carry my credentials, so I have a fiduciary responsibility to my clients in that regard. So if you have concern about talking to me about your financials, please don't, because I am bound by law to do the right things. Right? So, all right, where are we? Oh, and we can even, once we know where we're going and how much aid we've got, and all that, we can even help you make a little family financial plan, how to pay family part. So, soup to nuts, as I say. You heard that expression. I'm really old, so that's anyway. So if we do it right, maybe only Oh, let's see if we, I don't know how we're gonna work this, but we can try. So one of the things that we do for the students here is we put them on, for junior seniors, they're on a admission management platform. Oh,
You need to sign in.
let's see, put in, I guess, put in my email, put in my, oh, wait a minute, put in, well, I forgot that we were moving it over.
Yeah. Do you want to not do this?
Yeah, well, all right, I guess we can just,
Yeah.
I know it's Jack Smith is the name.
Yeah. Let me just do mine. No, wait, I don't have mine.
Oh, yeah, I can do that. And then we'll just go to Jack.
Yeah. And what's
Give
your
us just a minute.
what's your password? What's your password? Do you know?
It's seven, I would say.
Right. Forget it.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's
Try,
not gonna work.
try, I don't know, go to college, explanation 2.
No.
Try it. Go to college 1, 2. No. Oh, wait a minute. You gotta get rid of it. That's why I didn't. No.
Mm-mm. Yeah, we'll have to skip that. It's
We're
okay.
gonna have to, oh,
Yeah.
okay, sorry,
We were prepped to use another laptop.
anyway, it's online. Everything is managed through this portal. You have to call it. Your colleges are there. You can go into the colleges and do research on them.
And when your student is a junior,
Yeah.
we link them all up to that. They have access. Will parents have access to it? They can. Yeah.
So, and then, so the college essays are all there that need to be written. The admissions requirements, application deadlines are all set up there once we know where we're going to be applying in the chronological order. It's hugely powerful tool, and it keeps kids organized, keeps them focused and on track. And you don't have to worry about 20 folders laying around the dining room table, that sort of thing. So, I wish we could show it to you, but
Yeah.
that's the problem when you save your password.
Yeah, exactly. And it's automatic.
See, so I guess we can go back to the,
Oh, this. Yeah.
okay, so, so aside from that, which is usually a powerful tool, we're in the process of investing in an app that is going to allow students to, through their phone, keep track of all their activities.
Volunteer hours, all of that.
Yeah, so it's there on the phone. For schools, it's great because if they're doing community service, there's a requirement they can connect the organization that they're doing community service for, and that organization can verify those hours and all that. The report can be printed out for the school. But the point is, everything, instead of waiting until you're getting ready for application time, trying to reconstruct 3-4 years of your life, this app is going to allow you to keep all that stuff, track it, and then you can print out a report. It allows us then to have really great information about all the things the student did. Our idea is to put this in the hands of 9th graders and schools that we're working with, so that they have that tool moving forward. So, so I'm kind of fast and furious, so I guess now it's time for questions.
You already have the app? Or you're working on it? So we iterate from the company. We'll be having a road.
We've agreed to it, it's just a matter of working out the details.
Yeah, so that's new.
handing me this now. You're done with the microphone. Does anybody have any questions about things that we
I know,
shared?
it's kind of seemed like that was really fast and
Yeah.
furious, so please.
Go ahead.
Well, my question is, probably for Ms. Mamenko, and I know there's 3 quarters, 7 parents. For the other kids,
Yes.
what are we doing? You know, like, I know Ms. Mamenko's gonna be working with us with 7th on, so what between 7th and 9th is happening for the kids?
Yes, you're right. I can't answer that for you. Right. But your 7th grader can be starting to think all about all of this
Oh,
stuff.
he's already like things he's decided, but it's like, what are we, you know?
There you go.
So beginning in 7th grade, we start really looking at goal setting. And so we start with thinking about a long-term plan. And as they enter into 8th grade, there are some upper school credits that they can take. So kind of guiding them through that so that they're taking classes that are building up their own interests, that is allowing them to maybe explore a new interest to see kind of where their passions lie. I also work with the Virginia Wizard. It is a website that is utilized by the schools in Virginia, both our high schools and different colleges and universities. And it starts to allow them to kind of align their own interests with their own skill set. And so it gives them, even in 7th and 8th grade, when we take a look at it, it gives them an idea of local colleges that might hold a degree. And so they have this sort of goal in mind. So as they are working with me to choose their 9th grade classes, we're starting to kind of follow a pathway. And then we build upon that in 9th and 10th grade by looking a little more in depth into the careers they want to take and what the colleges want them to, how to showcase themselves. So is it going to be, do they want to see volunteer work in the field that you are interested in? And so we work with our students to see if we can get them in different roles. I had one student who was able to volunteer at the hospital this summer because she really wants to go into the medical field and wanted to see if she enjoyed it. So working with our 9th and 10th graders, it goes more in depth. So if we kind of think of 7th and 8th grade as those goal-setting years and just knowing that they are still going to be in school for another 8 to 12 years beyond middle school, just so they have kind of a map in front of them. And then we really start to see the road signs as we go into 9th and 10th grade. We also start within 9th and 10th grade looking at Khan Academy, and we use their personalized SAT prep. So it allows our students, since we offer the PSAT to our 9th and 10th graders, it allows College Board to link accounts so that they are practicing the reading, writing, and math questions that they struggle with. Now, as a 9th and 10th grader, we encourage them to do this on their own because we realize that some of our students haven't taken enough of the math classes, that their score would be much higher when they take the actual SAT after Algebra 2. But it allows our 9th and 10th graders to start thinking, okay, maybe I want to do a little extra work in math, or maybe I want to work with Miss Hardwick Ivy or Miss Butterworth a little bit more on my writing skills. And so it just has them start thinking of always, how can I better myself so that I am shining on that transcript? When college admissions counselors are getting this transcript and you have 500 students with a GPA of a 4.3 and an SAT score of a 1410, what is going to differentiate your child? And so if I'm able to work with them from 7th grade until they graduate, I have seen them grow. I have worked with their teachers. When it comes to those letters of recommendation, we are speaking to who your child is. And so it's a great process to work with them early and start having them think, okay, what do I want to do? What do I want to be? So it's a great process as we go along. They'll be building a small portfolio in 7th and 8th grade, and then we'll build upon that in 9th and 10th so that we're ready for the resume writing when we get to our junior year. Yes.
It's done. It's all done through College App. I mean, through the application process. Yep. No, there's no scan. Like teachers do it all. Like you go in and say who you want the recommendation from. The application portal sends it to the teacher. Teacher sends it back. Student never touches it. But yeah.
When we are told to submit a draft. College and.
Oh, for the essay.
Yeah.
Oh, for the essay.
No, so is it essay only or is it both an application and then the essay?
The essay is part of the application.
Right.
Yes, and we'll be in with seniors with him weekly until they apply.
Yes,
For the fall.
Tomorrow is our
Yeah, we
first one.
start tomorrow. So we'll be in tomorrow every week until early action admission. So we'll go through all of that.
But if they have a letter of recommendation from someone other than their teacher,
You-
that's scanned in and or
You don't do any of that. You put the email in of who you want that recommendation from, and then the application site sends them the request. And I've been a recommender before. You just get an email saying so and so would like you to recommend them. You,
Somebody already wrote.
then they can scan it and put it in. Yeah. Yep. Or cut and paste it. Yeah.
I do see a question that has come through on the chat about Naviance. We no longer utilize Naviance. Instead, we have moved to the OptimumEd platform. And as Ms. Suarez and Mr. Leahy talked to us about that during their end of sophomore year, they will get a login to that so that they can do their assessment and then have access to that portal throughout their junior year and into senior year. If there are other questions from our Zoom audience, please feel free to type them in the chat, and we will be happy to answer those as well. Now, while I know it might take a moment to write, so I would like to talk just about some of the communication on my part. I will be sending out emails for reminders of SAT dates that are upcoming. I will also be holding coffees with the counselor starting in October. And I will be sending out invitations every other Wednesday to our parents. And what I'll do is I'll start with a senior class, and it's just a chance for you to touch base with someone on campus and ask questions. So that'll be after OptimumEd has met with our seniors for a couple of weeks. And then so you can come in, you can have someone to talk to on campus as we go through the next steps, because for some of our students who are wanting early action or early decision, we need to get those November 1st deadlines met. So you'll have a chance to meet with me, and then I'll work it right down. So juniors, sophomores, and I'll open that up for both in-person and Zoom sessions as well. So if you need to just call in, if you've got some questions, I'll be sending out more information near the middle to end of September about those coffees with the counselor. And I'll work all the way down through our 7th grade, and then we'll just kind of open it up for some general sessions beyond that. But that way each grade group can hear information specialized for them. Let's see. I don't see any more questions in the chat. Do we have any questions here tonight? Yes.
So when do you guys like meet with students during the day? Like is it during Big Ten? Is it during a specific class?
Yes, so for our seniors, that will start on Wednesdays, and it'll be every Wednesday throughout kind of the first quarter, and that'll be during their lifetime. So every Wednesday from about 12 to 12:40, that time is set aside, and then in the springtime, they will come in at that same time frame with our juniors.
Yeah, like we come about 4 or 5 times to set up, the resume, the college search, and familiarity with the platform, the essay. So we come about 4 or 5 times this spring.
So when it's all on the platform, I can log into my kid's account and look and see what he's done? Is that how that works?
It's a college application project thing.
Okay.
So it's mostly just the assessment will be loaded in there in the files. You'll have a list of colleges, and then you can select college and investigate. But the essays aren't on there, those kinds of things.
Okay, but that assessment and stuff.
The assessment will be on there, and the list of colleges.
So if they did the assessment their sophomore year, it's on there now?
If they did it, yeah.
Yes, and I think I spoke with Jones, and he did remember doing that. Give him a little
He
push,
did, but
Sydney.
he's like, I don't know if I saw
Yeah.
the results.
So Jones did fill out that assessment last spring and knew about the website as y'all were talking about.
Yeah, and we're going to, there's one day that we're gonna come in and talk to all the juniors, to revisit the assessment.
Okay.
And we're doing that like next month or
Yeah.
a couple weeks, yeah. We'll be doing that, to revisit the assessment, because we did a general overview in the spring, but then we'll revisit that so that they're ready to roll in January.
Is that how the career path class is intertwined with this?
Yes, so right now, they are working on kind of clusters that were identified and then working on possible careers. Any other questions for Ms. Suarez or Mr. Leahy or myself? Yes.
What are we doing now with the ninth grade?
So with our ninth graders, our first part of the year is focused on study skills and time management. And then in the springtime, I will be working with them to look at their interest and skill set and possible career ideas, or if they've already have those career ideas in place, we'll look at different schools in the state of Virginia that could satisfy their needs. And then once they get a little older, we start looking beyond Virginia's borders. So during the springtime, I will be into the ninth grade and the 7th through 10th grade lifetimes. I'll kind of rotate through them weekly. Yes, ma'am.
So, do y'all prepare them for the SAT and the ACT?
So most of our prep is centralized on the ACT. I apologize, SAT. Though we do encourage our students to take the ACT after they've taken an initial SAT.
And you do recommend that they still do that, being that 65% of the colleges aren't requiring them to?
I think it is good for them to have it under their belt.
Okay.
Whether or not they want to send the scores is another question. So for example, if you have a school that doesn't need or is test optional, they can choose not to send those scores. But it's just something that they can have. Yes.
Right, exactly. So every school is different. Every school has
And
But
some of
you
them
don't-
will ask for an extra essay.
Okay.
You don't want to wait until this time, senior year, to decide, oh, the school I want to apply to needs tests. So let's do it, have,
Okay.
mid of Saturday morning to doing it, what's the worst case? We risk it.
Okay.
But we don't want to,
And so normally for our juniors, we recommend an SAT at the end of their junior year. So that end of May, early June date. And that allows them to have the mathematics they need as well as the writing and reading level that they need to be successful.
Do they take that here or do they go SAT?
So they do go to a different testing center. So when they go to register for the SAT, they will be able to choose a close testing center to their home.
Okay.
Since we have students just from all over. So they'll be able to choose a close one. And then, of course, if a student wants to try for a higher SAT, they could take that right at the end of summer. So what they might find is they get that initial SAT score. It's not where they want it to be. They can utilize that summer for some SAT prep, either through continuing with their Khan Academy account or the different tutors who are available in the area for SAT prep classes.
Sorry, scholarship to Kevin Cole, like,
yes.
Yep.
will you be helping the students or is it the parents with the responsibility to go in there and start?
We can show it to them. And what it is that they fill out the forms and it's kind of up to the student to be vigilant in doing that. We can show them how to do it, but they'll have to be the ones to do the work and do that, see which ones make more sense and that kind of thing.
Anybody else?
Oh, sure. I think I'm good then. How many letters of recommendation do they normally get?
I would recommend 2.
Two?
There's some schools that want 3, or you can send 3, but 2 is generally the standard.
Okay.
So, have 2 teachers that are, one can do that for the student, have that, prearranged for senior year, I would think, so that we know that we have that capability.
All right, well, thank you. Oh, no, go
No, I
ahead.
said I'm good. I'm good.
Sorry. But thank you all so much for coming out. Again, I will be sending emails. Sometimes you'll be like, okay, that's enough emails, but I just want to remind you of just what is going on, either with SAT registration dates or just general information, and be on the lookout for my invite for coffees with the counselor.
Thank
Thank you.
Thanks for
Look forward to
coming.
working with your students, and students look forward to working with you.
Great. Thank you to everyone who joined us via Zoom. We will have the recording just in case things were hard to hear. And I hope you have a great evening.